Hi, everyone. Welcome to our book talk tonight with Kris Corbett. She's going to talk about her book, Bravely Bleeding. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Kris. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Darla. I appreciate you having me. Bravely Bleeding, it can be a tongue twister sometimes. I know that. But the title just felt so right. So I went with it. Um, so my name's Kris Corbett. I'm a registered nurse and I've been writing since the age of 5. So a book just naturally came to me. And it was really important to me to give back once I got to a better place. So for me, uh, being a nurse was both a blessing and a curse because I knew too much at times, and that was often, um, yeah, it made things harder. But I'll go back before that. So first of all, I'm going to be drinking tea. This is not beer. I'm not pounding beers while I talk to you. It's tempting sometimes, but that's not what this is. So. Let me just start with like I'm super casual. I will answer any questions. What has gotten me through this entire odyssey of ups and downs is my incredibly dark sense of humor. And I was telling Darla, I swear a lot too. Like I think that's part nurse, part South Side Chicago, and just like why not? But with you, I will have it dialed back, um, unless it feels right. Who knows? But for me, this is a new thing. Actually, even talking about my diagnosis, I never spoke about it. I kept it very quiet. I wouldn't let people know what was going on with me, and I take that back to I had to develop a hyper independent personality when I was a child, and so I think that just carried over into my diagnosis. I felt like I had to manage everything on my own, which was really great to see that this alliance had been formed because at the time of my diagnosis, there was nothing, or at least I was not willing to really seek out much help other than my immediate healthcare providers. So, back in 1999, I know everybody's doing the nostalgic 90s right now, and so the early part of the 90s was fantastic for me, but as those years went on, it became terrible. So it was 1999, and I had just moved from Chicago to Maryland, and I was volunteering with AmeriCorps and the Sisters of Bon Secours in West Baltimore. It was just a way for me to get out of Chicago because I had graduated college and that just wasn't working for me anymore. So I moved to hopefully start this new beginning. And 3 months in, um, no, I guess it was I had been there since August, and so come December we were all flying home for Christmas. There were 5 of us who lived together and we were from different states. And it was really going so well. And I went home and it was the day after Christmas. We had a huge family party. And I woke up and yeah, the left side of my lips felt numb and my tip of my thumb, tip of my forefinger. And I hadn't really noticed that part at first. So I reached for a bottle of orange juice in the refrigerator and it just fell to the ground. And I was like, oh, God. I just thought it was a long night. So I just thought I was tired. But as the day had gone on, it wasn't stopping. And my mom, she worked in an emergency room, and my stepdad, he's a Chicago paramedic. So as the day went on, I had to admit something wasn't right. And so then we went to the ER, and they started with, well, and that's what made it hard too, because my diagnosis occurred in Chicago with people I've known for years. So their faces said it all. Something was really wrong. But at the time, obviously, as many of you know, they don't know what it is right away. So they just said brain lesion. So, I was thinking, oh my God, is it cancer? It can't be cancer. And so, there's that unknown period, and then obviously all the testing. So I have a sporadic angioma, not the genetic variety. But this thing, it sure did become a volcano real quick. Maybe one, but it was definitely mighty. But after the first bleed, I was 22 and I bounced back very quickly. And in my mind, I was like, okay, maybe that was a one-time situation. But they obviously advised me to hook up with a healthcare team in Baltimore. So I chose Hopkins. That made the most sense. And really, to be transparent, I do not get along with most neurologists. I just don't. So, there was that, but my neurosurgeon, who obviously, he hadn't performed surgery at that point, but he was just in my back pocket, and I really had a great relationship with him. So yeah, I just carried on with life as normal. There were no real you know, didn't have any lingering side effects for very long. Maybe after a couple months, all the numbness kind of just faded, and I felt my body felt as it did before. So, oh, Kelly, right? Gosh, I feel terrible saying it, but it is the truth. I think I've fired like 10 to 12 neurologists. Um, so I decided, I was going back to school to become a nurse. Darla, I started with psychology, was about to go into the PhD program, and then I was like, no, I don't know, I'm not going to do it. So it took me a while to figure things out. Um, and so I decided I'd go back to nursing school. And in after the Gosh, now it's all becoming blur. Yeah, so my second, because I went back for an associate's because I already had a bachelor's, so I needed to expedite it. And so I completed the first semester, and then the second semester, it was right before the obstetrics clinical started, and I was really excited for that one because I was just really tired of I have really sick people. I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. I need some happiness. Let me see the good side of this. So I was like, all right, babies, that's gonna be fun. And before my first clinical rotation, the night before, I was living with my friend's mom, and I was like, I don't feel right. I don't know what's wrong. And so she's like, do you have to go to the hospital? And typically I would say no way, but I was like, yes, I do. And that was the night I had my first like full-blown generalized seizure, and another hemorrhage. And then in my life, that's when my life changed dramatically. I lost Yeah, I was a pretty confident person up until that point. I lost all my confidence. My world was shattered. I did not think I was going to have a regular life. I thought this was just going to take over. And and so at that point they're like, okay, it's symptomatic, obviously going to remain symptomatic. So, surgery was the next option. So, at I guess that point I was mm, 27, and it's something for someone in their 20s. Now I have four kids, right? And I think back, I'm like, how was I making all these big decisions alone? Doing an advanced directive, all this paperwork, and me being like, it's just so flip sometimes. Apparently, I handed my mom the packet of all my, what I wanted done with my body, etc. Had the surgery not gone well, I handed it to her. I was like, just don't read it until I'm in there. And I don't even remember that part, but to get through the surgery, they could not, at the time, the technology had not advanced enough, and my lesion, it's between the frontal and parietal lobe, but very deep, and they just couldn't get to it. So I think we were like 5.5 hours in, and I don't know if any of you, it's funny, it feels like it becomes such a small world. Um, yeah, right. I know, David. So true. I woke up like, wow, what? I was throwing up from the anesthesia. I was like, what do you mean it didn't work? Like, I didn't even consider that to be an option. But my surgeon, Daniel Rigamonti, he was at Hopkins, and he is he's from Italy, and he's like so calm, so handsome, so like he just makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. And so, for those of you who've been through an awake craniotomy, all of a sudden I hear him yell, fuck. He was like, fuck. And then like I hear the tempo totally change. And I felt like I was trying to get out of the operating table converted into a chair-like situation. So I felt like I was trying to get up, kind of like flight or fight had kicked in, and I was like, get me out of here, brain open or not. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so, many years later, he and his wife and I were having coffee together, and I told her that story, and she's like, "Not Daniel, no, no." I was like, "He did. I remember it. I may have been partially sedated, but I absolutely heard it." So, but it's that like funny, like that's what I have to go with to get me. I just like laughed about it because it was so out of character for him. So, picking up on the little things that made me laugh just helped get me through it. So that did not work, and then we tried Gamma knife to encapsulate it, and that maybe it worked. I don't know, but the seizures had taken over by that point. It was just something that was not going to stop. And then of course, you pile in all the medications that start to change your personality and function. I don't know how I graduated nursing school because I said, let's do it in the summer. Yeah, I was so casual about it. It was a little disturbing for some people. I said, okay, I need brain surgery. Can we maybe wait until the semester's over? I can do it. How about June? How about the second week of June? He's looking at me like, okay, 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 we can wait until the second week of June. He's like, are you okay with June 13th? And most people were like, absolutely not. I was like, who cares? Maybe that's my lucky number. I'm going to do it on June 13th. Let's see how it goes. Um, so I mean, in a sense, it didn't work right, but it wasn't catastrophic because he and I was a surgical nurse. So I know where some surgeons' egos can take them. And thank God he does not have one. And he stopped when he thought he should. And I still every day thank God for that because who knows what, I mean, my left hand for sure, but a lot of my left side would have been paralyzed. So it didn't work, but it was okay. And I always say I'm really not a good loser. I was a pretty hardcore basketball player, and I think that has carried over into life because I don't like losing. I don't like being told no, and so all of that just propelled me forward. I think what kept me going is that I didn't want to be, and not that people intentionally necessarily choose to become a victim of their circumstances. Like it can happen. I mean, it does happen to all of us occasionally, but I wouldn't let it define me. I was like, this is not who I'm going to be. I'm going to create the life that I imagined, even if there's stipulations and I have to work even harder. I'm going to do it. And so I did. I had four healthy, great pregnancies. I didn't think I'd be able to have kids, but with C-sections, I just couldn't have increased cranial pressure. So we did C-sections. Never had a contraction in my life. I made it to my scheduled date. Um, Thankfully. And I created a great career. Clinical nursing became way too hard for me physically and mentally and emotionally. I just couldn't keep up with the pace, and the seizures would often worsen depending on what shift I had or patient load, etc. Like all of it. And then really I began to get scared that I'd have a seizure at the wrong time and take away from the patient and become the patient and cause a distraction. And particularly I loved working in the OR so much, but it just didn't feel like a safe place. to be any longer if I was taking care of somebody. And that was really sad, really hard for me to give up. Um, and I don't know if any of you have read the book yet, but really what I wanted to do was be a trauma nurse and then a flight nurse. And as you can imagine, as soon as I was diagnosed with a seizure disorder, I was like, okay, well, that's not happening. So what's next? And what's next felt terrible to me until I figured it out in the OR. I loved it, but like I said, that became too much too. So I found a great niche in public health and loved it. Created a great life, and then COVID hit, and that changed all of our lives. And I was oh no, let me step back. So eventually, I got to the point. I tried, as probably all of you, tried everything to get try to get better, right? I'm like, there's somebody out there who knows how to fix this. I know it. I'm finding them. And so I continued to, hire and fire neurologists. I had a neurostimulator implanted to try to help interrupt the seizures. And that thing, first of all, I've discovered I can't handle a foreign body in my body. It just didn't work for me. And I actually felt like I was being strangled sometimes. So 2 months later, I was like, get this out of me. I tried every medication, so many alternative therapies. Plus, I had a headache every single day of my life. But that was manageable. The only thing that was unmanageable were the seizures. And eventually, I mean, they were mostly partial seizures, but they would generalize, and then it started worsening. And I didn't follow rules, but like I still like I knew my body so well by this point. I probably pushed myself a little farther than I should have, but that's just human nature sometimes. So I carried on with life. But then Hopkins told me, okay, that's it. Like we don't have anything else for you. There are no more treatments. And I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for listening to them because clearly there were other options because I'm okay now. So I took their word for it. I was like, okay, I guess, I just see where this takes me. And that broke my heart because I'm like, what if I die way too young and I'm not around for my kids. That's what really I think I continued fighting so hard. Well, I know I did for them. Because that there became there were times where I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, right? It's too unpredictable. It's too exhausting. And then when your healthcare team's like, there's nothing else, like that's when I just, kind of briefly really hit rock bottom. But then I don't know, probably 6 months later, I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna become the most powerful person in the room. I'm gonna go to law school. So I'm gonna be a nurse and I'm gonna be a lawyer and I'm gonna be the smartest person in the room. Because where I did work, there were plenty of ego-driven people who didn't always make good choices. So I was like, I'm gonna turn this problem of mine into the biggest power move ever. So I did. Studied for the LSAT, took it, did fine, got into the University of Baltimore's law school, was going to do it in the evening. And then I had my third hemorrhage. I was like, okay, I guess that's a sign. Like maybe I'm being saved. I shouldn't be a lawyer. That's okay. So I look back and laugh at that and think, oh, that was a save. Like, because well, sorry, don't want to offend any attorneys who may be on the phone, but they don't have the same sense of humor as I do. So it would not have been a good fit, I've come to realize. So I was saved by the third hemorrhage. I like to joke about that. Um, so I I had heard that my first neurosurgeon, Dr. Rigamonti, had moved to Saudi Arabia to start a partnership with them and Johns Hopkins. So I was like, I don't care if I have to fly to Saudi Arabia to find him, I will do that because I couldn't reach him by email. And it was really strange. I tried for about a month, and then all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try one more person. And they were like, oh my gosh, he just moved back to Maryland. And so this woman, I've never met her, but I have this, I love her because I feel like she's the one that made this connection to change my life. So she set up a Zoom call with him right away, and he was no longer operating. So he gave me two options, one local, um, and and then the other was in Jacksonville, Florida at Mayo Clinic. And so it obviously started with the local consult. And I have no problem, like perhaps it's my experience in the OR, but within 60 seconds, I was like, I cannot stand that man. There's no way he's touching my brain. Forget it. So that was a very brief call. And but the second one was magical. His name's so long, Dr. Alfredo Quinones, but there's an abbreviation in there anyway. So everyone just calls him Dr. Q. And the second that we spoke, I was like, he's the guy that is going to change my life. I know it. And and he did. Obviously, with the help of the advanced technology, brain mapping in particular, that my neuropsychologist at Mayo helped develop. Um, they were able to go deeper and get it. So it is gone, and I'm coming up on 5 years now, and seizure free, headache free, and you know, life is it's funny because I thought I'd wake up and hear the news that it worked and that magically everything would be okay, right? Like I'd just be this new happy, healthy person. And that was, it was really quite the opposite. I woke up and I had no idea who I was. And it's not that I had like medically induced, like there was no damage that would have caused like any amnesia or um, psychosis, if you will. But really, I completely lost my identity. I came home and there were people I was like, why are you even in my life? Like I don't even like you. Like I was so irritable, so confused. There was I pretty sure I was like just having nothing that interfered with daily living, but hallucinations that I didn't necessarily want them to stop. They actually they were very euphoric. You know, I didn't put this in the book because I didn't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. But like I would see colors so much more vividly than I ever had before after the surgery. Like I would stare. We have three pugs, and oh my God, they're so obnoxious. But the two black ones, they'd be like off in the like a far part of the yard, and I'd see these like orange auras around them, and then they'd like run, and the color would follow them because I thought maybe I don't know, maybe lights just shining on them, but like it would follow them as they ran off. So I had really beautiful experiences too, as I surmise that like my brain was rewiring after the surgery. Um, but it also wreaked havoc on my marriage and a lot of relationships. And what I had come to finally figure out through the help of therapists is that, when you have a chronic condition, an illness that changes your life, it becomes the focus. And so what I hadn't done was dealt with the other things in my like life goes on, right? You just happen to have a medical condition that takes up a great deal of your time, but life continues. So you're experiencing all these other things too that you have to cope with. But I wasn't coping so well with the other things. I was stuffing them down because um just staying present for my kids and acting like nothing was wrong with me was really taking all of my energy, that and my full-time job. So I wasn't, I wasn't speaking up. I wasn't defending myself. I didn't heal the relationship. my mom and we went through a lot together. My father had committed suicide. He was a Vietnam vet. And so my book goes into all this like past complex trauma that resurfaced after the second surgery, which was supposed to, put me on this new happy path in life, healthy. And what had happened was all of that resurfaced and it was like suffocating me. And the only thing that I could go to, because I can't, I coach basketball now, but I can't play because my left hand. And so it's not like I could go join some like pickup games and blow off steam that way. So I was like, maybe I should start writing again. Like that's been a strength and a hobby and a skill that I have always relied on. And so it started as poetry. I just started cranking out poems to piece my life together. And that poetry collection is called Piece Together, but it's spelled Peaced, because that's what was helping me figure out who I was with this part of my life that was so very different now. And then with those poems, I was like, if I struggled so much and I was within the healthcare system and understood a lot of how things worked and how what clinical outcomes to expect, etc. If I didn't know all of that, like maybe through telling my story, putting it in a book, because that's what made the most sense for me, maybe it can help prepare others or at least keep them going because for all of us, some people that there's not a magic miracle at the end and that breaks my heart. But for me, there was, but I will tell you that I still every day I have to talk to myself and say, okay, like you haven't had a seizure in almost 5 years. It's not going to happen. Yeah, it's still with me. I still carry it with me. It's still in my head. There was a time at which, I mean, it's not there, but there's plenty of differences going on there. There's hardware. I'm like, I have $1 million skulls and brains, so be gentle with it. There's plenty of titanium, it's very strong, very expensive. Be very careful with my head. So, but it's still with me and I do wonder, I'm like, is it ever really going to leave or I'm always going to be kind of on edge? Like, the other day I woke up in the morning and I'd like fallen asleep on my hand and so I felt pins and needles and all of a sudden my heart started racing. I was like, "Oh my God, am I having a seizure?" So I still go there. So even though you know, in another, like, say, 5 years out, I mean, at the 10-year mark, I could technically be classified as cured, but, to this day, I wonder if I will ever truly let it go. I'd like to think so, but it's been 5 years strong of, uh, of thinking about it still. But thank you, David. It's so for me, like telling the story now, it kind of feels I don't know because I kept it so close to me for so long. I didn't share most of it. Um, I I guess one of my stronger message to patients is like, God, don't do it alone. Just don't. I like created so much. It was just so unnecessary of me to like keep it all to myself. So I think it's amazing that the Alliance exists. I really wish I had bothered to search and find it sooner. I think it's amazing that there's a support group because I definitely this was the most isolating uh, this is isolating, right? I couldn't, I just wanted to be like my friends, my cousins. I didn't want anything wrong. And here it is ever present and unpredictable. And, we'd be at family parties and, you know, everybody's laughing. And then all of a sudden I just have this like wave come over me. Like, wait a minute, what if I have a seizure right now? Like, well, I'll walk upstairs and hide, maybe I'll tell like one person. I don't know. Like I always had to like I had a plan in my mind. So I was living in both the past and the future, and very rarely the present. Like the past, because obviously subconsciously I was still a lot of turmoil with some of the events in my life. So I was stuck there, yet I was also very much in the future too, like always planning, okay, if I'm alone when the kids were babies, I was like, okay, so Tracy, the neighbor's home, I'll just make sure she comes over real quick. So it was always like these extra steps of planning and but I also was, I know a lot of people, understandably so, are like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I never did that. I don't know why. I was always like, okay, well, it's probably unhealthy, hyper independent uh, personality trait of mine because I'm like, okay, why not me? I'm strong enough to take this. Like, I'd rather it be me than my kids or my friends. Like I can manage it. And so, but with that, I also it was unfair to some people because then, at times I would get mad, like what? But I don't feel, I just had a seizure. I have a pounding headache. I'm exhausted, and you want me to do what? Which was like really obnoxious of me because I wasn't sharing what was going on in my life. So they didn't know. They thought I was fine. So my point in saying all of that is I wish I would have handled things a little bit differently when I was in the throes of it because looking back, it was unfair to a lot of people and it was unfair to myself and really unnecessary. So again, just the existence of the alliance is so wonderful to bring people together because you don't have to feel as isolated as I did. Um, and so with that, I don't know if those of you who may have read the book, I'll answer any questions. If you haven't read it, I've heard that I've gotten a lot of feedback, some solicited, some unsolicited, some from people I was like, why are you even talking to me about this? Because we don't have a great relationship. But I've learned that it makes people laugh, it makes people cry, it gives people hope, and that was the goal. And I wrote it from both a patient and nursing perspective. I reflected on some of my own patients that came to mind as I was getting, recovering after the surgery and reflecting. I've incorporated some really vulnerable thoughts. So yeah, it's like a brutally honest account of not just getting through the angioma, which by the way, like I mean, I don't know if now I'm dealing with now there's an advantage to keeping it quiet because now I'm like, oh my God, there's so many different words for this, variations of words for this condition, right? They're like, wait, so you have a what? And then there's, depending on who you're talking about, well, or talking to, they'll use a different term for it. So people are learning a really good outcome. My cousin, she's a teacher in Chicago, and she passed it around to a bunch of her friends, and another woman ended up getting it. And after all the several years, she really believes that she's been misdiagnosed. And so she's setting up a consult with the Mayo Clinic now. So I was like, and nothing else. Like that's why I wrote the book then, because maybe this woman will get her diagnosis and get the help that she needs. So yeah, I talk to teachers groups. I have a medical conference on Saturday, and I'm just an average person who wanted to help in some small way, and so this is it. And uh, yeah, feel free to ask me anything, or just anyone who joined later. This is not beer, it's tea.
Thanks, Kris. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.